Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. As I say, 10 minutes is a whistle-stop tour in terms of IVDs, but what I would like to encourage you to do is to try and contact me if you have any questions around this. A brief introduction of myself. So I'm Stuart Angell. I'm the current Reg Affairs Programme Lead for the British IVD Association. I'm also the chair of the Reg Affairs Working Party, and I'm also on the executive board. And I also have my own consultancy called IVDology, which provides QARA support and consultancy to the IVD industry. As always, caveat: this is my views, this is my interpretation. There are other views and may not reflect the the associations that I work for. Very quickly, just for those that don't know, BIVDA is a national trade association. We are focusing on the IVD products in the UK. And we have over 240 members, and we account for 95% of the industry. So really, really strong, focused trade association, and we are obviously really, really proud to be part of potentially the future rollout of regulations for IVDs, and we support our members in understanding what that means. So going back to first principles, what is an IVD? I have the definition in front of me. I will not be reading it out. You can read it yourself. I guess Richard, prior to my discussion, talked about medical devices. But the key distinction really between an IVD and a medical device, because IVDs are a subset of medical devices, but these are effectively taking a chunk of meat and you're testing it away from the body, right? So in vitro is in glass. So you're effectively intending this device to be used to examine specimens, including blood, tissues, stool, and testing it away from the body, principally for the purposes of diagnosing or testing the conditions that are covered within points A and F. So that's the key distinction between medical devices, which are very much on or in or under the body. IVDs are testing the sample away from the body, hence in vitro diagnostics. So that is what we're talking about today. For example, this is obviously the COVID test, where you had a swab sample and you're putting it into a tube and you're squeezing it into the lateral flow test. That is a great example of an IVD. I should say that kit itself did have elements of medical devices in it. So the swab sample, the swab you were using to take the sample, for instance, was in fact a medical device, even though it was in the IVD kit. So there can be different elements of different devices within the IVD kit, and that is common within the industry. Okay, so where are we in the UK? Well, we have the UK MDR 2002. This is both for medical devices and for IVDs. We share the same regulation. Currently, for IVDs, we still use the IVD directive from the EU. So it was transposed from the directive in the European Union into the UK law, and that is what we currently have. Whereas in Europe and in Northern Ireland, we do use the EU regulation 2017/746/EU. So it's important to say that actually in Northern Ireland, which is governed by the competent authority, the MHRA, which is the UK competent authority, they are in effect using the European IVDR, whereas Great Britain is currently under a less complex, less rigorous IVD route to market. What does that mean? Well, ultimately, you have a different way of classifying and implementing the regulations of IVDs. The old school, the text in kind of pinky purple is the old UK class. So you have 90% are general, they are self-declared devices, and then if you have a high-risk device, you have Annex List 2A or B, or a self-test. These will require a notified body. But by and large, 90% of devices are covered as a self-declared. Compare that to the EU, where you have Class A, which are kind of instruments. They are the self-declared, classes B, C, and D, which are increasing in risk as you go through the letters, to class D, which is high risk. These are all requiring conformity assessment by a EU-approved body or a notified body. So you will see that there is a clear difference between the UK regulations, which is largely still self-maintained by the manufacturer self-declaration, versus the EU model, which is very much driven by notified body conformity assessment. Now, these broad principles are common with the IMDRF, International Medical Device Regulatory Forum. This is to try and provide global alignment to how IVDs are regulated globally, and so there is kind of commonality between key markets included Canada, Australia, Singapore, etc. The FDA is slightly different, but fundamentally what we're trying to do is to align from a European level to the globally recognised process for regulating IVDs and medical devices. For IVDs then, what is the transition? Well, if you're looking at the EU from 2022, if you have a new device or a Class A, you will come under this new, higher, more strict version of IVD regulations. There is a transition, so Class Ds are the next risk. They are due to be done in 2025. You have Class Cs to 2026 and Class Bs and A-sterile in 2027. There is a proposal to push this out by a further 2 years. How does that sit compared to the UKCA? Well, we know the fact that at some point there will be new regulations in 2025 with a 5-year transition for full UKCA marking at that point. So IVDs, they are low risk. They have not been fully regulated or firmly regulated before. So there's a large disparity between what the current state of play is, both in the EU and the UK, versus what is happening in terms of this IMDRF model, where there is a higher rigour to make sure there is patient safety and closer monitoring of devices. So that's the outlook. What that means is there's going to be significant change and significant churn in terms of devices that are available to the UK in terms of IVDs going forward. This is a slide that shows you that we do utilise CE marking, at least for the short term, and we continue to look at other elements of international recognition to make sure that IVDs are maintained in the UK for the longer term, to make sure that the NHS has sufficient ability to use diagnostics going forward. What is changing? I'm not going to go through this, but there is significant changes that is happening. I think for you guys, it's worth thinking about the LDT model. There is an in-house exemption. What does this mean? Well, if you are intending to create your own IVD or repurposing an IUO or an IVD for your own objective, then there is an in-house exemption. Now, currently, this isn't well defined or actually controlled, but there are changes that will be put in place as part of UKCA. That will require a quality management system. You will be having to have some legal responsibilities in terms of that, and you must meet some elements of the regulation for the use of that LDT. So if you are looking at that, then please come and contact me. I'm happy to go through in more detail what the implications are of using and creating LDTs in the market for that point. There's the wider kind of conversation in terms of what kind of in-house tests are. You can read that for yourself, but please do come back to me. Final minute. In summary, IVDs are a subset. They are different from medical devices, different amounts of complexity, so don't cover all of them as one. The history of IVDs is a bit different to medical devices. It's a tougher route to maintain compliance to the IVDR in the EU, but also potential changes in the UK. So there will be some changes in terms of the devices that are available to you. So please have an understanding of what is coming through. Make sure that you can speak to people to understand what the implications are, and certainly try and be more aware in terms of the industry, what is happening in the next 5 to 10 years. That's how BIVDA can help. My role is to do something similar to what I'm doing today, really to help people understand what the implications of the changes are, what it means in terms of new devices coming through, specifically AI, diagnostics in the industry, and how we can work together to make sure that the UK still maintains a good level of pragmatism when we are creating the new UKCA process for IVDs. That's it for me. Hopefully that's been on time and useful. You have my details. Please do reach out to me. I'm happy to go through any other questions you have going forward.